Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk with you guys about my 3A gear. So what is 3A gear? You know, in the past I've talked about how I use the line system to kind of organize and categorize my equipment. Line 1 being the survival and recovery gear that I carry on my person, you know, in case I should ever lose all my other equipment. Kind of a backwoods EDC, you might say. But it also includes things like good, appropriate clothing choices so I can have good, you know, basic shelter. Line 2 is, of course, seen here. Got my chest rig and my rifle. It's a scouting and fighting load. All right, it's the equipment that helps me locate threats, communicate that information to my teammates, and ultimately engage or defend myself from those threats or targets. You know, in a hunting context, I wouldn't consider a deer a threat, so to speak, but you kind of catch my drift. And then line 3 is our sustainment equipment. It's that equipment that helps us sustain and take care of our needs like shelter, food, water, etc. And so this day pack here on the left is my line 3 gear. Now, depending on the duration of your outing, of your patrol, of your hunt, whatever you're doing, kind of determines the size of the pack you need, all right, and how much stuff you need to bring with. Now, a long time back, when I was a grunt in the Marines, I did a lot of patrolling, and I spent a lot of time, probably half my enlistment combined, on some form of a QRF, which is a quick react force. And kind of like firefighters, you know, when they get a call, they need to be out the gate in a few minutes to react to whatever situation they get handed. Being on QRF is very similar. You're expected to maintain a high level of readiness in order to react to whatever tactical situation has come up. And so having your gear packed and ready to go at a moment's notice is important. And so rather than having a 3-day pack packed all the time, I like having one ready to go for up to 24 hours. Okay. I can't tell you the number of times that I was sent on a short patrol where we were told we'd be back, quote unquote, before dark, or it'd only be a couple hours. Or even in my own dumb mistakes, you know, you look at the weather and go, oh, it's sunny out. Why do I need to bring rain gear? And then something pops off while you're already out and you're needed to go do additional tasks that end up meaning you're going to be out of the wire longer. And so I've learned through painful experience sometimes that having a little bit of extra gear with you for those contingencies is not a bad idea, you know. And so today what I want to go through is that kind of very basic 24-hour setup that I think everybody should be well experienced and well versed with, because frankly, if you can't go out and do what you do or do what you need to do for 24 hours, you're not going to be able to do it for 48 or 72 or any longer. And so this 3A gear kind of forms the base or core of your capabilities. And then you just match the weapon system to whatever it is that you need to do. Now, the 3A gear that I'm going to be going over today, I've got my fighting gear with me today. And so this is going to be a fighting 3A setup. Obviously, some of these items may not be applicable or even legal where you live or for whatever situation you're envisioning. For instance, I've got some Stano gear in there that would not be legal if I was out here hunting. But I'm not out here hunting, so I don't have to worry about it. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the gear. So the pack itself is a modified Savata 202 day pack. All right, for those of you unfamiliar with Savata, I believe they're a Finnish company, and they make very high quality gear for the Finnish military. And this day pack, I just did a review video on it that I'll have up soon, but this day pack's a very economical, very well built solution for those of you looking for that, you know, 25 liter or so sized day pack. Now, like I said, this one's modified, and so You can see it has these outside pockets here and here. Those were added aftermarket. I had a shop build those and attach them. They're not MOLLE pouches. You know, a sewn-on pouch is always going to be lighter than its MOLLE equivalent, typically, at least in my experience. And then up here I added some tabs so that I could have this compression system added for my poncho. I like having the poncho on the outside, accessible for camouflage, rain protection, and it also keeps it out of my pack, you know, so I don't have to stuff it in there when it's wet and get all my other items dirty, or wet rather. On the bottom I had a few tabs added just so that I can, you know, add things like a sleeping pad or other bulky items, but I don't use that a whole lot. And I also had this loop panel attached so I could put my own patches and some cat eyes on. These cat eyes are great. You know, this is all MET-TC dependent, mind you, but for what I do and with the people I do it with, a couple cat eyes on the back of our gear really helps with nighttime navigation as a team, so that you can keep track of the guy in front of you. You know, when you're moving around out here pitch black, not everybody has night vision, and so just being able to see that guy in front of you easily helps keep people from getting separated. The shoulder straps are very minimal. They're about 2 inches wide, just webbing, no padding or anything. Because on my fighting gear, you know, it doesn't take long by the time you have a chest rig and a day pack to start. If everything on there has a 1/4 inch of pad on it, next thing you know, oops, sorry, I just bumped my mic. If every shoulder strap you have on there has a 1/4 inch of padding on it, that's going to start stacking up, and then when you go to try to get a good try to seat your stock and your shoulder good, you're going to have all that padding to contend with. So I like to keep things as thin as possible. Okay. And this day pack, I also call it the LJK. You'll hear me call it that because of the Finnish paratroopers. The LJK, that's like their acronym for their name, and I'm not even going to try and say it in Finnish, but the LJK are the Finnish paratroopers, and they would take these day packs, the unmodified version, which I have one right here, and basically just roll these up, stuff them in their ruck, and then after they jumped in, they would have a small patrol pack that they could just bust some water and other mission essential gear into to patrol out of their patrol base with. So that's pretty much the pack. Next, I'm just going to get into, you know, how I pack it and the items that are in it. Okay, guys, so let's talk about kind of start getting into the gear. You know, I prefer running chest rigs, but for years I ran an LBE as well. And one thing that was always nice about the LBE was the ability to have not just your fighting gear, but also, you know, your water and a butt pack with maybe some chow, rain gear, etc. in there. And it was always one self-contained unit. Now, once you switch over to a chest rig, you know, I've seen guys with chest rigs that they end up looking like the Michelin Tire Man because they try to fit all that stuff on their chest rig. Okay, the benefit of a chest rig is that you can really streamline for fighting. Period. Okay, and if you keep it streamlined for fighting, it's very effective. But of course, that leaves the question: how do we carry our water, things like that? And so that's where a day pack comes in handy. And so the day pack gives me a means to kind of bring that 24 hours of sustainment with me. I've been out on many patrols, like I said, been called out many times for QRF, etc., where it's supposed to be just a short thing. And while you're out there, something else happens. You end up getting diverted over to that, and your 2 or 3 hour little adventure gets turned into a 12-hour or 18-hour thing. And sometimes that means you're out in the weather and you weren't prepared for it. And so, you know, they say pain retains. Pretty much every piece of gear in this pack has been proven multiple times to me to be important to be there, and that's why I'm comfortable recommending it to you. I'm not making this up. It's not a hypothesis. I didn't, you know, read about it in a book necessarily, but everything here is through my own experience. And I think mastering your 24-hour, you know, you need to be able to head out the door and sustain yourself for 24 hours, you know, whether that's providing security or just providing for your own sustainment. You know, and if you combine this with a well prepared area of operations. You know, if you have caches, however you want to say it, or other supplies or resources out there, there's no reason why this equipment, you couldn't push past 24 hours pretty easily. Okay. Granted, it's not going to be the most comfortable in the world, but if you can gut out some discomfort, you'll be just fine. Now, ideally, what I like is to have this pack ready to go. This hangs in my gear room at home. It's ready to roll. But I like the idea of being able to integrate this with a larger pack system, and I'll be detailing a method for that in an upcoming video. But just to, you know, being able to take this and combine it with some 3B gear, which would be your sustainment for everything past 24 hours. So, like, more dedicated shelter, sleeping gear, and more chow and hygiene gear, essentially. Essentially now you're just needing the stuff so that you can live out for multiple days, and that's your 3B gear. And being able to combine this 3A gear with your 3B gear gives you a nice capability of being able to go out for 3 or 4 days, but yet have all the essentials in a small, ready to go package that, if you need to ditch that larger ruck, or you get to a camp and set it up and then you want to go out and scout or patrol the general area, you can quickly grab this and move on. And so, really, the development of the skills and equipment for your line 1, line 2, and line 3A kits really should be the primary focus of most of your training, because what we're really talking about is being able to defend ourselves and sustain ourselves for at least 24 hours in our environment, in our natural environment. And, if you can't do those two things, it doesn't really matter. You'd have the best large backpack in the world. You could be packing the best sleeping gear. It's not really going to matter because you're not going to make it long enough to use that stuff. And so these items right here, and most importantly, the skills to utilize the equipment effectively, and the skills to be able to improvise in the field if you need to, understanding basic shelter construction, water disinfection, things like that can really help you bring a minimal amount of gear like this and sustain yourself pretty well in the event of an emergency. So real quick, I'm just going to go over what on the outside of the pack is out here. And so I've got, my USGI poncho, like I've said in the past, that pretty much goes with me everywhere. And depending on how I'm packing for the trip is where that rides. So on this little patrol pack, it's just outside where I can get to it easily for either, obviously rain, but also extra camouflage. You'd be kind of surprised at how effective just this poncho is at breaking up your thermal signature. Of course, it helps us blend in the right areas, but it's also useful as a CASEVAC. You can haul somebody out if they get wounded or hurt on this as well. So it's a very multifunctional piece of gear, and it just rides right here. On these two side pockets, they're just my water bottles. Now, when I had these pockets designed, I didn't want them. I hate water bottle pouches that are the exact same size as the water bottle. To me, if you're going to take up the real estate on the pack, you want as much, you want to take as much advantage of that as possible. And so I have just my water disinfection kit, my 1 liter stainless steel Pathfinder bottle, and that's it. And I'll usually stick like some Kind bars or some other energy snacks over here. And then on this side, I've got my Baco folding saw. Now, some of you might be thinking, what in the world does a folding saw have to do with patrolling? And this piece of equipment is very important, especially in colder weather, for helping to construct any sort of shelter, camouflage, or overhead cover. You can gather up camouflage materials very easily with this. So it's a very useful tool. It's not that heavy. It's not really heavy at all. And, should I find myself out in colder weather than I expect to be in, this is very effective at gathering up all the firewood that I might need to get me through a night. This is far more useful to me than a hatchet, okay? Because I can quickly start cutting down stuff to get all my shelter and fire needs with that. Next is that 1 liter Hunersdorf bottle that I've talked about in the past. And then I've got my titanium cup wedged in there as well with a cotton bandana. And if I can, I'll fit more snacks in here as well. And the cup isn't like necessarily so I can sit down and make a cup of tea. Obviously I can boil water in this if I need to disinfect it, but sometimes my water sources aren't very easy to get to, or I don't want to just take my whole bottle and plunge it in there. And so I'll just scoop water up, pour it through this, and then fill the bottle that way. And I've got a video kind of showing all that. Okay. And then lastly, this lower claymore pocket here. Not sure if a claymore would fit in it, but it looks like it would. It's just my team leader book. All right, on the inside of this pack, I've kind of packed this in a specific order. Kind of at the top, I've just got my Petzl headlamp, so it's easily accessible in the dark. All right, I've got a small, what I think of as a camouflage kit here, and being able to quickly and easily supplement your camouflage in the field is important. You should go out, if you're headed out on a patrol, you should be heading out with, all your equipment and people properly camouflaged already. But no matter what, you're going to have to supplement it in the field, if nothing else, with just the local vegetation, okay? But these sniper veils are highly effective if you choose the right one, obviously, for your environment. And I really like kind of these double-sided ones. And so this one kind of has more of this, woodland style, like if I'm in these trees and stuff. But it's also basically reversible and has kind of this lighter kind of khaki or coyote color for if I'm in a more arid looking area. Okay. Now I've gone through and tied all these little sections of 550 cord on. I just call them ties. And that just makes it so I can easily add, some vegetation and tie it on. Probably pick something a little longer than what I just did, but that's what was close. But you get the idea. And I did the same on both sides. So I've got ties on both sides. Okay. I've also cut a slot or a hole in this. And basically that's so that if I want to drape it over my rifle, my optic can see through. So it's just a good general piece of camouflage material. Of course, it is a net as well. It has some survival uses as well. And to go with that camouflage, I've got good old stick of camo face paint so that I can always camouflage my skin, particularly my face. That's probably the most important. I wear gloves a lot when I'm in the field, but my face would be what I would need to camouflage the most as far as my skin. Next, I've got a hygiene kit, and this has basically all the same items I talked about in the Bongo Becker Patrol Pack video. I've got some porta wipes, hand sanitizer, some foot powder, little, just little band-aids and stuff. So if you nick up your hands, you can take care of that without it getting infected, and some bug spray. I've also got a small thing of dermatone and some body glide. So if you start chafing, you get sweaty or wet from the rain, and a lot of times your waist and inner thighs can chafe. And so it's nice to have something to put on those to kind of help keep them from getting too chafed. One important item, a spare pair of socks in a Ziploc bag. Okay, dry socks. Dry socks are important, especially, you head out the gate or you head out to go do something and you expect it to only take a few hours. Well, it rains while you're out and then you get stuck out for another 10 hours because something else came up. Having a spare set of dry socks is pretty important. All right. I've also got my rifle bipod. I don't typically patrol with the bipod mounted, but if I get to a position and I want to put the bipod on, it's a QD bipod, and it's easily attached and detached. Next, I kind of have what I think of as my core temperature control kit. Now, as I unpack this bag, you can see it kind of got looser there, and so my poncho's coming off. Just set him over there. But this core temperature control kit is basically warming layers that, if I'm stuck out overnight, are going to help me maintain my core body temperature. Okay, and so I've just got a wool, kind of old school surplus wool beanie. This has kept my head warm many nights. And all these items, you know, when I think about warming layers, and it's the same thing with sleep gear, I think about them working just as good when they're wet as they do when they're dry. So I'm looking for insulation materials that will basically keep me warm even when I'm wet. Okay. And so, like I said, I got that wool beanie. Next, I've got a pair of outdoor research Gore-Tex glove shells, because in the past, you know, I've been out in that kind of cold, wet hypothermia weather, and my hands, you know, basically I've got good layers on, except for my hands get soaked. Next thing you know, my hands are just getting cold and cold, and they don't work as good as they do, obviously, when they're dry and warm. So having those Gore-Tex glove shells helps me to protect my hands from the cold and wet. Then I've just got a set of Manzella. These are just a thin thermal glove from Manzella. Kind of just give my glove or my hands some thermal protection. You know, when I was younger, I could wear just a set of regular mechanics gloves in the winter, and didn't really matter. But now that I've gotten older, I have to put a little more effort into taking care of my hands. So having some thermal liners there can help with that. Then I've got my Helicon Wolfhound jacket. It's a great piece of gear. Lots of people talk about the Swagman roll, and for good reason. It's a good piece of gear as well. This Helicon Wolfhound jacket is made out of the same weight of insulation, ClimaShield Apex, as a Swagman roll. And so essentially, it's a Swagman roll cut into a jacket. Okay, now obviously it's not going to be usable as a sleeping bag and so on, but this gives me a really good base of core, you know, insulation for my body. And of course, I can put all this stuff on and then put my poncho over the top, and you'd be surprised just how much heat that'll retain. Okay. So that's pretty much it for my core temperature control kit. Next, I've got a set of these nylon boot gaiters, and these have been a great little piece of gear. Help keep your, basically from here down, keep yourself dry-ish, keep your feet a little warmer than they normally might be. So they're worth having. All right, this is what I call my night fighting kit. All right, and this is a padded zip-up bag or cube, and who made this? Maybe there's a tag in here. Oh shoot, LaRue Tactical made these. I don't know if they still make these, but it's a heavily padded optics case is what it is. And so within it, I keep my thermal weapon sight, which is a AGM Rattler TS25 384. If you're interested, it's nice, lightweight thermal. It's got an ADM QD mount, just like all my other optics, and so I can just pop this day scope off, put my thermal on, and I'm ready to go for nighttime. Okay. Next, I've got this hard shell glasses case, but it's not glasses that are in here. It's my white phosphor PVS 14. Okay, so I just keep it in this glasses case. A friend of mine showed me that trick with a spare battery. And so, you know, basically I can pull this night optics kit out, and then I've got it all. The only other thing I have in here is a couple spare lithiums for the thermal. But I can pull this night optics case out and then remove my day sight, put it in here, and put it back in my day pack, and then I'm set up for nighttime use. Okay. To go along with that, I've got my what the heck is this thing called? Nightcap. My Cry nightcap and my MVG mount for my PVS 14. That pretty much does it for my night fighting gear. Next, I kind of get into just a basic toolkit that I keep in this little bag. And mainly it's just tape and spare batteries. And then I've got a couple of these little candle tins that I could use, if I had to stay out overnight and it was cold and wet, and I've got that core temperature control kit on, and I've got my poncho on. Basically, I can put all that on, light this candle, put it down here, and with my poncho over me, it's going to trap the heat from that candle, help keep me warm in case I'm feeling like I'm going hypothermic. Okay, and these are 4-hour candle tins, and there's 2 of them, so I got 8 hours worth of warmth there. And that just rides in this little sil nylon pouch. Got a little bit of rolled up duct tape, a small roll of electrical tape, and then more batteries for my optics and headlamp. Next, I've got my rifle cleaning gear, and it rides in one of these small Magpul suppressor pouches. And I've just got some patches, small bottle of CLP. CLP is not my favorite weapon lube, but it works. And so I just keep that bottle in there. And then I've just got a GI bore brush and chamber brush, lens pin. I've got the steel cleaning rods. And then I carry a small BCM SOP mod bolt upgrade / rebuild kit. And all it is, it's all of the gas rings and extractor for an AR bolt carrier. Okay, so it's just some spare parts that if something were to break in the field, I can at least try to get my rifle back up. And that just all rides in this little pouch. And I really like the solid metal cleaning rods over like a bore snake, because a lot of times you're not out in the field trying to scrub your bore out like you might do back home or in garrison or whatever you want to say. A lot of times you're trying to remove obstructions. Some guy takes a header, sticks his muzzle in the dirt or the snow, and now you need to get that stuff out. And I mean, yeah, you can try and find a stick to jam in there, but when you're trying to get from point A to point B and you need to get that weapon back up and functional, just throwing these rods through, punching that bore with a bore brush real quick, and cleaning all that stuff out is way easier than screwing around with sticks and a bore snake. So I still run the old school steel GI cleaning gear. And then way down in the bottom, I've got just a Ziploc bag, and in it I've got a couple of these Folgers coffee singles, which is just like a tea bag with coffee in it. So if I want a little pick-me-up while I'm out there, I got some. And then I've just got one of these emergency food ration bars, which actually expires next month, it says. That's how long it's been in there. But basically, this is great because I don't have to cook it. I don't have to boil water. I don't even have to have any fire or anything. I literally just grab this thing, crack it open, and I can break a chunk off. And, one block is 2,400 calories. So it's enough calories for a whole day. And it's just fat and carbs. So it's, just good pure energy for you. And so that pretty well, other than in the bottom here, I guess I've got a little bit of camo paint, another stick of camo face paint there. But in the bottom, I like to carry some large zip ties. And this is just for general gear repair or, really anything that you might need a zip tie for. So I've got duct tape and zip ties. I can pretty much build a house now. Okay. And then what I've done in the back of this pack, because normally it's just, there's nothing back here. It's just fabric. And so I just took a chunk of iso mat and cut it to fit in the back and made like a little back pad. So that way I don't have to worry about my equipment stabbing me in the back. All right. And so I feel like, like I said, line 1, line 2, and line 3A and the skills associated with those 3 lines really form, in my opinion, what should be the core of your training and abilities and skills. If you don't have those skills and abilities, it doesn't matter what other high speed stuff you know. If you can't go out your front door for 24 hours and defend yourself and sustain yourself, you're wasting your time. You can go to all the high speed reloading classes. You can do all the precision long range shooting classes, or any of the other highly technical skills that we can learn, and those are important to know too. But being able to just do this is more than most people can do, and so if you can do this, it gives you capabilities way beyond the average person, which is kind of cool. And so I think it creates kind of a baseline for what a person might be shooting for. Okay. And so, last, what about mission essential gear? So, let's talk about mission essential gear. Now, I've got kind of, this is all just a very general, practical setup. There's nothing highly specific here. There's no precision long range equipment, no spotting scopes, no tripods, no shooting, any other shooting enhancements other than my bipod. No rear bags. What other mission essential gear might we be bringing? Extra communications gear, extra ammunition, and so on. And so part of this, like I said, this was derived from many years of being on like a QRF type setup, and so it's very much geared towards that. When we start talking about mission essential gear, that's gear that we've identified that we're going to need based on thorough planning. We might determine that we need some special breaching equipment, or other obstacle clearing equipment, observation gear, communications gear, all that stuff. So that all that mission essential gear is all identified when you have time to plan. Okay, I'm not going to just carry around all that mission essential gear just in case. Okay. And if I have time to do that planning, I'm also going to have time to go, okay, well, maybe our little 3A day packs aren't going to cut it for this mission. And that's when you would want to upgrade or move this equipment into a larger pack, say like that Becker Patrol Pack. And for a long time, I've advocated that this backpack and a Becker Patrol Pack are probably the 2 packs you should own. This one packed all the time, ready to go for emergency actions, and the Becker Patrol Pack there for those more pre-planned trips. Okay. Now I've got other packs that I run for more specific scenarios, but this combined with that Becker Patrol Pack gives you a massive amount of capability. Now, obviously, if you have a special role within your team and your equipment won't fit in here, say you're a medic or communications RTO guy, maybe you just carry a lot more ammo for everybody. Maybe you have a weapon system that uses more ammunition. You're going to have to, probably look at a different pack. This is just a very basic out the door kind of setup for that general rifleman type use. We're not getting into special roles here, but I think that the Becker Patrol Pack is that next step up. If you're looking for that next level where, hey, I need to carry bulkier items, a lot of times when I come out in the field, if I need to carry more gear, then that's the next pack I grab. Okay, it's got those capabilities built in, but just keep in mind that, your standard Savata, not the modified one like mine, your standard 202 Savata weighs 15 ounces. The Becker Patrol Pack weighs about 6 pounds. And so you're shaving 5 pounds off your gear just by choosing the smaller pack. And so that's why I don't just take this gear and throw it in the Becker and call it good, because it's 5 pounds heavier. Why carry that when I can carry this? Now this one in particular with the extra pouches, I think this one weighs in closer to, like, if I remember right, it's about 1.5 pounds empty. So it's still not bad, but still not 6 pounds. So that pretty much covers, my 3A gear, which is really, like I said, meant for that 24 hours. It gets you out the door and able to take care of yourself for 24 hours in most climates. I wouldn't take this out the door if it was negative 20 degrees, obviously, then I'd have to do something different. But for the most part, this is a very good general purpose setup. It's based off of years of experience, both good experiences and bad experiences, and I'm passing that along to you guys. So I hope that you appreciate it, and I hope it's useful. And feel free to comment. And I know that there are many, many ways to skin this cat, and I'm always interested in learning from other folks who've done it as well. There's a ton of knowledge out there, and I appreciate you guys watching and subscribing and everything. Thank you to all of you guys that have been checking out the store and ordering from the store. I've got That's kind of helping fund the operation here, and I've got some stuff that I think you guys will be interested in coming up. So, anyways, thank you all for watching, and have a great day.